Hello, I think we're live. Probably been sat here for a few seconds while the streaming was going. My name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for joining me for our live event. This is where we hang out. You ask questions. I do my best to answer. We'll see how we go. Honestly, I can see I've already got questions in the chat, so I'm not gonna faff about. I'm just going to get into it. Right off the very top there was, what is best to drink before singing, and is it better to consume? So first of all, thank you, Lori. I appreciate the question. And thank you for joining us today. And Brandon, thank you for joining us. Samurai. Who else do we have? Sharon, Jack. Thank you very much for being here today. I truly appreciate it. I suppose I should say I will try to get to as many of our questions as I possibly can. So we'll see how we go. Hopefully that will work out. Anyways, what is best to drink before singing, and is it better to consume warm or cold drinks? Room temperature water is always your best friend. Individual differences, however, do apply. So for example, curiously enough, I know I'm not really eating much dairy these days, but I know that I can eat yogurt without having any real deleterious effects to my singing voice. I used to snack on it all the time when I had an office in downtown San Francisco. That was like my go-to snack because I knew it would never interrupt my ability to teach effectively. There will be beverages that will affect you better or worse depending on your own personal body chemistry and things like that. So again, for example, peppermint tea for me is absolutely horrendous. And you'll notice that in the list of things that I know I cannot have, green tea would be another one of those things. The list of things that I know I cannot have if I intend to sing critically is quite long, because those are the things that I noticed quite immediately and then would not have when I was teaching or having to do a performance or something like that. But room temperature water is really what you want. That will help kind of just everything go as best as it possibly can. If you're gonna have something warm, try not to have it too hot. The heat of the hot beverages like coffees, teas, and things like that, typically speaking, the actual physical temperature of it is the part that's particularly problematic, so do watch out for that. Ice cold drinks typically do not agree with me, and I would just caution you and observe any problems that you might have if you are having anything like that. So that is what I would suggest you do. And you might just keep a list of things that's working really well for you, not working well for you, etc. Hello from France. Hello from California. Hey Jeff, this is Jack, currently at the gym, just saying hi, we'll watch later. I hope you get a good workout. Navid, I'm a baritone singer, and the highest I go up to when I warm up and doing, okay, so falsetto exercises, this is tricky, is a G-sharp 4. Is there any way for me to sing higher, since many vocal coaches said baritones can sing higher? Yes. However, if you are actually using a falsetto configuration of the vocal fold into that range of your voice, then I'm not surprised that that's about as high as you are able to go. That being said, G-sharp 4 or A4 is also where there is another registration event for the baritone voice, and you could be coming up on that. So, what to do? One, assess whether or not you're using falsetto tone production in what I would call the zona de passaggio and the cricothyroid dominant singing voice of the baritone range. So for baritone vocalists, this can start quite low if you're a bass or a bass baritone. Those fox always get lumped together, and it's really not right. But anyway, that can start as low as like D4, D flat 4, things like that. And you need to find out if you are allowing the vocal fold separation as you ascend beyond the secondo passaggio. So, for example, if it's getting very airy, very falsetto-y, and which is the sort of common understanding of the word falsetto, that will not ultimately allow you to extend your range beyond that G-sharp 4, nor will it really give you the most consistent tone quality above the secondo passaggio. you will have to address that if that is occurring. Now, once you get good adducted phonation across the secondo passaggio, I'm really fond of the super lip trill in helping to extend the range beyond that next registration event, which is the where you're pulling the cheeks apart and bubbling lips. This will really require you to recruit quite a lot of engagement in order to be successful. And as it happens, I'm actually going to be recording an extended range warm-up, so some of the exercises that will be in this new warm-up, it won't be out for a couple weeks, but I'm going to start working on it today and tomorrow. We'll have exercises that are kind of like this. I'll show you, it's early still, so I'll show you here. Now I did that with the regular lip trill. You could do that with the super lip trill too. And B4 is quite accessible in that kind of format. Of course, I'm fairly used to it, but that's besides the point. Those are the kinds of exercises that you can start to work on once you've ascertained whether or not you're allowing the vocal fold to remain adducted, or you've learned to keep the vocal fold adducted across the secondo passaggio. Good question. I could probably go deeper on that, but I can see that the chat is kind of getting on here. So I'm going to circle back around. And there we are. There's Navid. Has a question mark there. I suppose that's supposed to be the end of your question. Lila, hello, hello, always a pleasure. I bet it's cold in Sweden. An excellent show, by the way. I put some claps in the chat. I don't know if you saw that. I know actually I was incorrect the first time I did it. I had like the hand washing thing, which I thought was applause at the ends of the pieces. And then I figured out what I had done wrong, but that was a lovely performance. Jürgen, Jeff, Jürgen, hello, thank you for joining us today. Jürgen, we have a question. Nice to see you, bro. Nice to see you too. Jürgen, here's the question. 3 questions. 1, how are you? I am doing well. I didn't sleep very well last night, so I feel a little bit kind of but for the most part, I'm fine, thank you. Nothing really to complain about. A little cold in the room, and the heater, it bleeds too much onto the microphones, and so I've got it turned off. I might not last the whole hour here without the heat, so if I turn it on, I'll try to turn it on low, but it kind of gets chilly back here in the studio. Did you and your family manage to avoid COVID? So far, so good. So far, so good. You know, we, as a vocalist, vocal teacher, YouTube vocal teacher, I am incredibly fastidious during cold and flu season. And so we were kind of already we upped it a notch or two too when all this came down and really, really got deep into like the masks and hand sanitizers and hand washing, and like we would quarantine our groceries and stuff like that. We've managed it so far, and fingers crossed we're gonna make it without contracting it. I know, and actually one of my clients has contracted it, and I'm very concerned, and I hope they're okay. Do I play guitar? Guitar thing is not a random question. I will ask more further. I consider myself a guitar operator, which is to say, I can play melodies and chords, and I know a variety of different voicings, but I have not spent the kind of time that actual people who are truly guitar players spend with the instrument. So I can operate it, I can accompany myself quite effectively and do a variety of different things. But I consider myself a guitar operator. So yes, I do operate the instrument. Magnolia, hi from Brazil. Hello. Hello from California. Thank you for joining us this morning. I suppose you might be only an hour or 2 ahead of us here, so it might still be morning where you are, or early afternoon. Is he Eli? Hello, miss you from the last live event. It's Eli from Lebanon. Thank you for joining us today. I suppose it's quite evening where you are. Do the basso profundo warm up. Just a reminder, thank you, Felix. I will definitely get down. I will get down to the far left end over here. I will remember also to refocus or re-angle my overhead camera. I didn't do that in a recent warm-up, and all you see is like the keyboard in the secondary shot. And I was like, well, that's useless. No hands in that one. Jeff, I'm about to go. This is Patrick. Welcome, Patrick. Thank you for joining us today. 1 second. I am going to have a little bit of that. Delightful. I'm about to go to school for music songwriting. Bravo. I have 0 formal voice training, would like to begin professionally focusing on voice, as I've been told it is a very pleasant one to listen to. Presumably you mean your voice. Please advise. Patrick, it'd be interesting to know what your background in music is. Yeah, if you've been a piano player or things like that. The overarching advice I would give to you is start in the most comfortable range of your voice. That might only span a minor third of space. So you might find that you've got D major up to F major. Start on your vowel alignment, work on your arpeggio breath management, and allow things to unfold from there. If you try to rush it, if your songwriting ear, so to speak, is taking you onto melodies and things like that that span rather wide tessitura, then if that's really the plural of tessitura, tessiture, I'm not sure about that. If your ear is taking you beyond just that comfortable range of your voice, you may want to make note of those, but stick to the most comfortable range of your voice while you are working on it. It will all go much more quickly if you do that. If you have had very little, if any, training up to this point, well, you've said 0. If you had 0 formal voice training, then the more you stick to fundamentals, particularly in the structure of your singing practice, the faster it will go, the sooner you'll be able to have access to all that upper register stuff. Me, Lena. Hello. Hi, Jeff. I love your warm-ups. They are the best I ever have had. Thank you for your work. You're very welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Leah Kelly. Hi, I'm a dramatic contralto, and whenever I get higher in my head voice, my voice gets really airy and low. That's what happens when I don't touch the chat for a while. Do you have any advice on making your head voice more powerful? Yes, the airy and lightness is because the vocal folds are separating. It would be interesting, Leah, to know where exactly you are experiencing this range-wise. In my experience, which is to say, this may or may not be true for you, in my experience, a lot of contralto range vocalists will start to get that airy, abducted, falsetto-like tone quality in the area of like A4, B flat 4, in that general area, give or take a half step here or there. And that's actually the middle voice registration event for the contralto voice. You're not really entering into your cricothyroid dominant singing voice at that range. The contralto range, secondo passaggio, is really at D5. And if you want to if you want to create a more adducted, which is to say a more closed vocal fold sound, which is to say more consistent sounding, it'll sound more like the rest of your range that's lower down, you will have to assess whether or not what I have said is accurate, in that if it's airy, you are absolutely getting a partial abduction or separation of the vocal fold. If it's happening where I said it's likely to be happening, that's the middle voice registration event for the contralto range vocalist. Mezzos too will sometimes skate off the vocal fold at that point as well, but that's equally possible as well. But anyway, you will have to assess that, then you will want to work on some exercises in order to keep the vocal fold adducted. Initially, these will not sound very pleasant. So for me, being a tenor, it's best if I show you here. You can hear how hollow that sounds. And you'll notice that once I'm below my secondo passaggio, it immediately becomes more like my natural singing voice. Here I am learning about access. I'm learning about keeping the vocal folds adducted, and I'm making sure that I've got adequate engagement to sustain that sound. Once I can do that, I'm going to start ascending and descending and doing a bunch of different exercises to make sure that I can consistently access that cricothyroid dominant singing voice, which is to say, head voice. If the vocal folds separate, that is not my head voice. There are those that will say that it is. I would argue that that is incorrect because it is a completely different configuration of the vocal fold. The vocal fold there is separated. If it is separated, you do not have access to the cricothyroid dominant singing voice, the head voice, in the same way, or at all, one might argue. You may still have some vocal fold elongation, but it's not going to sound consistent. So first and foremost, getting a practice of getting that adduction to come into play. Beyond that, then you can start doing scales and other exercises. This should get you pretty close to D5 before you will then need to assess whether or not you wish to make the transition across the secondo passaggio. If you do, those exercises will assist with that practice as well. You will be well positioned to start that practice. I hope that helps. Hennessy. Hey, Jeff, loving your voice. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm Hennessy. I'm a trans man baritone, 3 years on testosterone, wondering if you've worked with trans dudes before and if you have any advice for trans male singers. I do. I have. For 3 years, I suspect by now you may be more accustomed to it. But many who have transitioned can be really surprised by the way that the vocal folds thicken and the way that the secondo passaggio, which depending on your voice type before testosterone, your secondo passaggio may now be where your primo passaggio formerly was. And that thickening of the vocal folds can be very, very challenging if you're unaccustomed to it. And I would just say be patient with it, stick with it. A lot of the exercises that I've already talked about today in terms of registration events apply here. So that hollow sound that I demonstrated a moment ago, those are the kinds of practices that will help smooth that out if you're finding it challenging at all. And beyond that, all the rest of those same kind of rules apply. Good airflow, practice apagio, be patient with the registration event. The secondo passaggio for the baritone range Fock can be really, it can be tricky. It can be really, really tricky. So assess that and allow yourself time to, but again, 3 years in, I don't know. Who am I to say whether or not you're comfortable with that particular change? But be patient. It can be worked out. It just takes a bit of practice. That's the main thing that comes up when I'm working with individuals who have undergone these kinds of transitions. Let's see here. Mr. TB2Arvd. Hi, Jeff. I just dropped in to say that I appreciate you and your content. Thank you. I appreciate that. Irv Spanish. Thank you so much for all your tutorial videos. Greatly appreciate the warm-ups. Thank you very much. Blender Grease Pencil Guy. I love it. Just logged in and saw this live stream. Well, hello. Pencil Guy. Great job. Blender Grease Pencil Guy. Enjoy your gentle warm-up videos. Thank you. I appreciate that. Folks, I'm going to have to turn this on. I am freezing. I'll keep the fan low. As low as I possibly can. And I hope that isn't too distracting. Chris, hi Jeff, I see your music performance degree with Larry Teal Scholarship on your LinkedIn. Where are you I am indeed. I'm a saxophonist learning vocals. Yes, I am still a saxophone player. I still play. I studied saxophone in addition to vocals at the University of Michigan with Donald Sinta. Yeah, primarily classical. Classical, you know, I mean, as much, it's not really classical because, of course, it's not from the classical period, except for, I mean, even Mussorgsky's not really the classical period. So all the weird saxophone stuff. Where are you studying, Chris? Felix, hi from France. Qui je suis mais je sais très bien parler anglais. Il bilingual. I pronounced bilingual, I'm pretty sure, incorrectly. Yes, I'm sure that your English is better than my French at this point. I loved studying French. I studied French at the University of Michigan as well, until the practice of French. This is here's a humorous anecdote about me, since we're talking about this. And I got nervous reading that, so now I can't transcribe it because that's how my brain works. I studied French for a long time at the University of Michigan in addition to my musical studies, because I had originally had the idea of going to the Sorbonne to do my advanced degrees in saxophone. And then things changed. But one of the things that changed was that I was having to practice French so much, I was learning to dislike it because it was taking time away from my practice regimens. And so I thought, well, what would I really dislike? What would I really not want to do? And I figured accounting. I should take an accounting course because I had to take courses outside of the School of Music. So I thought I would take accounting. You know what? It was fascinating. I had an absolutely incredible time in it. I took it pass-fail, so it was super chill. I just relaxed and learned all these different accounting principles. Really cool. Ali, hello, Jeff, been following you for these past years and practicing to you. Can you speak a bit about breathing during singing and how to practice vibrato? Sure. Breathing during singing, I teach the Apogeo breath management system. Shirley Emmons, if you type her name, has a delightful one-page synopsis on this. If you would like to see the most recent demonstration of Apogeo breath, I don't know who Beth is, but she has, as far as I know, nothing to do with Apogeo. If you'd like to see my most recent, and I would argue one of my best demonstrations of the body geography for Apogeo, it's questions from comments 6. It's around 3.5 minutes into the video. You can skip ahead to that. And you'll see I'm wearing this really sheer shirt. And I go through all the expansion, contraction of the muscles, show you my back, my front, my sides, like all this kind of stuff. Vibrato, this is a tricky one. Vibrato is not necessarily something I would advocate you try to practice. Vibrato will emerge when you have parity between the column of air and the adduction of the vocal fold. So, when that's all balanced out, when you've got good quote-unquote support, and you are only using as much vocal fold engagement as is absolutely necessary to have a very efficiently well adducted vocal fold, then you will start to notice a sort of kind of wiggling in the voice. It'll kind of shimmy underneath you. At least that's how it feels to me. Your physical sensations may differ, but it kind of feels a little bit unstable. And you can kind of lean into that instability, and you will find that out of that you can encourage your vibrato. You know, I don't know that I've done it on the channel, and as I think about it now, I'm actually going to I love these live events because they make me think about things. And I'm going to do a video, and I'm just quickly notating this like that. I know you can't see, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to keep it in a comfortable range. So this is, if you wanted to kind of try to tempt fate, so to speak, and sort of get your voice primed for a vibrato, if you try to force it, you will almost certainly get a very contrived and unnatural sounding vibrato, which will only mean that it will take you more time for your real vibrato, your really natural vibrato to emerge. But if you were going to tempt it, e, 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 in that instance I've got short, 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 long, and I'm going to focus my brain on increasing my engagement over the duration of the pitch. I'm not going to hold it for very long. He, 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 he. Just 2 or 3 beats really on that. What an exercise like that does, the short notes allow you to weight the vocal fold, which is to say W-E-I-G-H-T, and unweight it. Weight it and unweight it. And if you maintain your engagement in between those short iterations, what you're doing is giving the vocal fold the chance to figure out just how much airflow it has to work with and how it's going to engage, and that also informs your engagement, and it has time to get recruited over the duration of those 4 rearticulated pitches. And then when you come to the held pitch, you stand a pretty good chance of feeling that wobbliness to the voice or even getting the vibrato to occur. That would be the practice. So I'll do a video with that. No reason not to. Erdin, I'm so sorry. Erdins, I hope that's correct. First of all, appreciate your efforts, and secondly, I want to ask for tips on bass baritones. My vocal range is between D2 and B4. Also, I sound very dirty, even if I want just a little bit of distortion. I'm not sure what you mean. Hello, Suzanne. I'm missing London these days. I hope you're still with us today in the chat. I've been missing being able to be in England this year as much as I am normally accustomed to. I hope all is well there for you. I'm not just, the thing about this, maybe I'll go for the last there, Yalim. Can you tell me a bit more? I know that I risk not getting to you here in asking this, but it sounds like you want more distortion, but you sound dirty. And what does dirty exactly mean? My sense here is that the vocal folds are not closing for you, that they're slightly abducted while you're singing even your normal exercises. And if that's desirable, well, that's one thing. And if it's undesirable, that's another. So maybe could you fill me in a little bit more, and I'll try to see if I can find you later on in the chat. So let's go back here. I see there's a lot of, where are we? Okay, Catherine, and I can see I gotta pick up my pace here a little bit. Hi, thanks for your very helpful channel. You're very welcome. Thank you. I hope you're still with us. I'm curious, FYI, if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love it if you would subscribe. That so helps the channel. I should really be better about saying that, but I just don't. I'm into this. Curious, why are A, A, E, O, U the 5 vowels we always practice? There are a lot more vowels. What's significant about these 5? Those are the 5 cardinal vowels that are taken from vocal pedagogy. Those are the ones that you will see in all the vocal pedagogy. That is not an answer, I realize. As far as I know, those are the purest forms of the vowels that we have. So all the remainder, like all the interstitial vowels that you have, like from the word bet, is a combination between that E and the A vowel. It's not exactly either or. So those vowels, these 5 vowels, tend to focus most easily for us. And I suppose too, I'm drawing a little bit here. I need to read more about the origins of bel canto, but I would suspect that somewhere in the annals of time in bel canto singing instruction, they found that these vowels, taken either from Latin or Italian, whichever it was at the time, would have been the most desirable for focusing the voice. So all the rest of the vowels tend to be of a different kind of focus. When you say E, it is the narrowest forward focusing vowel that we have. certainly in Western, in English language music. I believe it's also the same in Italian. And that's where we get them. That's kind of a partial answer. That's not the best answer that that there might be, but that would be my take on it. Is that those 5 are the ones that are taken from bel canto, and I suspect that they are the purest shapes for vowels that we get without other intermediary interstitial vowels kind of playing with them and changing the focus of the voice. But I'm going to have to look that up. That's a really, really good question that I feel like I've looked it up in the past, and I just haven't. And I'm thinking too about the IPA vowel charts in the backs of my books, and on those you'll get this clear separation between. Actually, that's not exactly right. A lot of the interstitial vowels are in the primary section for vowel shapes, and then you start getting diphthongs and other shapes that give you different vowels. I'll have to look into that. That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Alec, I have a question about covering songs. I tend to imitate the voice of the original singer, which is often painful. How to get that voice out of my head? A song I've listened to for 30 plus years. Very tricky, very tricky. Great question, Alec. There's any number of different things that you could do. If it's a song that's done, change the tempo. Very easy to do. So just change the tempo. Obviously, if you're working with tracks, if you're not accompanying yourself, then these things can be trickier, but change the tempo, change the key. You can, if it's a song that's generally played on piano, maybe play it on guitar, or play it on something altogether different. Grab a ukulele, maybe. Do things to it, even if you do not want to ultimately do that in your performance. Doing some of those things may be helpful in getting you away from the original performer's version of it and let you discover what you're going to bring to that tune. That would be a start. Jürgen, further guitar talk. Would it be appropriate to compare voice type range with guitar? Thickness of string equal like voice type, tenor, baritone, etc. Voice range equal amount of frets on fretboard. Place where we ran out of frets is the place where we fall into falsetto. We still can sing, but no strong tone, just like pressed to wood string, not to fret. That's a very interesting question. I have had instructors in the past use guitar similes and metaphors with me. There is a certain amount of validity to the way that you've articulated that, and I think the thing about it is that if it works for you, go for it. Stick with it. That is absolutely legit. If it's working for you and helping understand the function of your voice, use it. Understand what's happening. Understand about adduction of the vocal fold. Understand about elongation of the vocal fold, which is to say cricothyroid dominance. I think it pays to know the terminology that I typically use on the channel. It certainly helped me. I think it's valuable to know that, to try to come to an understanding of it. But if those metaphors make it easier for you to access those events in your voice consistently, yes. Absolutely, absolutely do that. Case in point, my favorite metaphor for a tonal onset, for the beginning of a phrase, is when, if you've ever watched like a violin player or a violist or a cellist, that moment when you'll notice that they don't always put the bow to the string and then start the motion of it. There will be times when it all comes together, when they have the note ready and the bow and the string meet and that tone just glows out of the instrument. That's how I think about the beginning of a vocal phrase. I want the tone of my voice to emerge out of this confluence. But that's not going to work for everybody. That's weird. And I know it is, but it works for me and I like it. It makes me happy. So that's how I think about things. I'm not thinking about all the technical jargon that I use in the videos or use in my instruction. That is there to help us learn to try to understand and hopefully demystify how our voices work. When it comes to like playing, performing, giving a performance, things like that, if that works, by all means, by all means, by all means. Hunky Wonky. That's a cool ID. I hope you're still with us. 26-year-old male who recently started singing. My vocal range is from C2 to D5. My voice starts to thin around B3. And from C4 to D5 is falsetto. Can I estimate? No, I'm sorry. That's not really. And especially if you're saying it's falsetto, if it's really airy and things like that, if you're using the word falsetto in that meaning, which would be typical, then no. And plus C4 to D5 is over an octave of space. And if you're male, that would encompass almost certainly your primo, secundio, and tertiary or third registration event. All of it in that octave, that ninth. Unless you can locate those, then we'd only be guessing. Absolute range is not an indication of FOC or vocal range designation. You have to know the locations of the registration events. And furthermore, the overall demeanor of your demeanor towards singing, how it feels to sing in certain areas, is taken into consideration when determining FOC as well too. It's not just the notes you can sing. Do you have any tips to stop singing from your nose? It's me. It's you, it's me. Yeah, actually, that's going to be in a video. It's in Community Questions 16 or 17. It's coming out, I think it's coming out next week. Basically, in that video, I'm showing you a bunch of exercises where you're pinching and releasing. And in short, that's the thing you can do. So I can pinch my nose and release it, and there's little to no change in the sound of my voice, right? Now, if I'm really nasally, you'll hear that change. You will also, when you pinch your nose like that, you will also feel the nose vibrating. So you can practice those exercises and try to direct the air such that it doesn't vibrate the nose. You're not really changing the direction of the flow of air all that much. What you are changing is the way that the vocal fold is adducting, just so that we're all on the same page here. But we generally get the results that we want by thinking about changing the direction of the flow of air. So try to direct it back. Again, what you're really working with here is the way that the vocal fold is adducting. But think about moving the airflow back. As you feel the vibrations in your fingers start to abate, and this can take some time, so be patient. It probably won't happen on day 1, probably won't happen on day 2. Maybe it will. I hope you beat me. I hope you do better, because I used to be very nasally too. It might take 6 to 8 weeks before you start to see really significant results. You don't have to do all your vocalizations this way, just do some. Keep it in a very comfortable, easy range. As you can start to feel a lessening or an abatement of the vibrations in your fingertips, you can start to alternate, where you're opening the fingers and then closing it. And if when you pinch back, you start to feel those vibrations, then you've still got to do some of those exercises where you're just pinching. Wash, rinse, repeat. I really love, this is Suzanne, I really love the full soprano warm-up videos. It has really helped me. I use at least 3-4 times a week. Thank you. You're very welcome. I don't know if you're still with us, Suzanne. I think you were in London, but thank you so much. Patrick, I took notes. Very informative, and thank you kindly. You're very welcome. I also sent you a message via your website. I look forward to hearing about your paid services. Brilliant, Patrick. I look forward to chit-chatting with you. Khalid, hi, Jeff. First of all, I'm very grateful for the great work you do. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is very helpful. My question is, how can exercise a lot and hard without harming my vocal folds? Khalid, you haven't said, and it would be helpful to know, what kind of exercise you're doing. If you're doing a lot of like weightlifting and things like that, where you might be, kind of doing that kind of thing where you're using very aggressive glottal attacks, like glottal stops, be careful. Be careful with yourself. Be careful with your body. If you're running, I'm a runner. Also a very adamant rock climber. With those, stay hydrated first and foremost. Maybe plan a little bit of time in between the workouts and when you vocalize. And it's mixed. It's mixed as to whether or not. Pardon me. It's mixed as to whether or not the really, really cold air is harmful to the vocal fold, is going to cause any deleterious effects. I mean, if you're so cold, if you're in Siberia or something like that, that's a different story. But for most of us, or Antarctica perhaps, for most of us, the cold, and again, if you have asthma, this can be a problem too. The cold isn't going to be a real showstopper. That being said, I do tend to overdress on my early morning runs if it gets below 9-8 centigrade. When it gets to be cooler than that, I wear a high collar jacket. Even though the jacket's kind of too warm for the actual ambient temperature, I want to make sure I keep my neck particularly warm and toasty. But mainly watch your hydration, especially in cold weather too. We can think that we're not thirsty and still need to drink, and I need to drink too. Let's grab this. I have a variety of beverages at my disposal, as you can see. Yeah, I actually did just go, and I was drinking water. That was water, but boy, it tastes good. Yeah. That's what's immediately come to mind. There's something you'll have to assess if there's anything really specific about the kind of exercise that you're doing. Then you will have to assess that, or maybe pop up at another live event and we can talk about it. Watching from Las Vegas, do you offer private lessons and how much per hour in American dollar? Thank you. Jose, you'll have to get in touch with my website, jeffrolka.com, and we can talk about all those details. You can just send an email to me via the Connect page. I think it's called Connect. Sario, hey Jeff, hope you're well. I was wondering what tips you could give or exercises to help with globus pharyngeus. I don't know what that is. I'll have to look that up. And I will have to look that up. And perhaps we can chat again on another live event, or I may even just do like a questions from, I'll call it questions from comments, but you and I will know it's questions from chats. Chats, soon to be on Broadway. I know. That's what passes for humor over here. This is what passes for a joke. Chats on Broadway. Cats, chat. All right, okay, never mind. Moving right along. Hi Jeff, what would be best to find my tone of voice? Because I am a young male trying to find my singing voice. Depending on how young you are, Xavier, it may be time. Long-ish exercises, not like super long notes. Super long notes are often prescribed for instrumental musicians, and that is in fact quite legit. But for us, slow and steady wins the race. What we're looking for is an even response across the 5 cardinal vowels. I did a video, it's older now, there's a couple actually. I did a more recent one recently too. Just as valuable today as the day I cut it, it's in its own playlist called Fast and Slow, where I go through exercises like that at ever-increasing tempi. Pardon me. I would check in on that. We're looking for, if you want to find your natural singing voice, practice appoggio, practice vowel alignment such that You get even response across the 5 cardinal vowels, which can then be extended to all the vowels that you might sing in your repertoire. I would add that ear training would also be something I would suggest you get into right now. I am 95% certain I'm going to do an ear training video showing you how to use a website called musictheory.net. I have no affiliations with I emailed. It was a gentleman who had that website. I emailed him probably over a decade ago to ask him for permission to share his website with other people. But I don't that's the only contact I've ever had with him, which he said yes. He said I could tell people about his website. This was long before I had a YouTube channel, long before anything like that. I used to do tours. And I had like a Rules of the Road MySpace blog, if you can believe such a thing. And I talked about that website for practicing ear training and things like that. And his website is absolutely fantastic. Support him, or I don't. It may have been changed hands by now. It used to be a him. I don't know if it still is. Support them. And like I said, I might contact him before I use the website in a video, just to make sure he's cool with it, they're cool with it. Goodness me, Jeff. At any rate, work on your ear training. If you want to sing in tune, which we should all want to do, your ear training will be a big part of that, and it is an excellent, excellent resource for this. That's what I would suggest you check out. Kirk! I seem to only be able to apply either good pharyngeal resonance or a good connection to my chest resonance, but not both at the same time. Do you have any tips for a connection? I don't know what you mean by connection within the chest. I mean, if you're meaning like, no, that's not good pharyngeal resonance, right? And I would argue that if you're in your chest voice range, that the kind of pharyngeal resonance that we don't talk about that until we're getting into the zona di passaggio and above the secondo passaggio. And so what I would argue is that what you're looking for in the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest range, would be more of a balanced phonation. So, on the other hand, if you're doing, well, that's pushing down quite dramatically, as I'm sure you can hear in my voice. I wouldn't consider that to be a good connection. That's too heavy. It will never support a transition, possibly even into the zona di passaggio, certainly not above the secondo passaggio. So it kind of depends on what you're meaning there. But if you're pressing down too hard and you're associating that weight of phonation, weight of singing in that thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, that chest voice range, that weight is what you're thinking of as connection, that's going to be too heavy to really generate adequate pharyngeal resonance as you ascend, certainly when you're in the zona di passaggio and above. So I would look for, if I've interpreted your question correctly, I would look for an increase in the balance of your phonation in your chest voice and see how that affects your ability to have an adducted vocal fold and still begin to have incrementally greater amounts of pharyngeal resonance as you ascend. Hope that helps. Amir, my range is between C2 and A flat 5, but my mixed voice is too bad. What should I do to increase it? It's a very broad question, Amir. I always want to help. It depends on what you mean by bad. I'm afraid I'm going to have to, I'm so sorry, but I think, and I'm not sure I'm going to make it today, but if you could maybe be a bit more specific. Bad, I don't know what that means. And you're quoting me like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and a half octaves of space. There's so much that could be going on in there. And also the way that you're using the term mixed voice could be not the way that I think of it, because mixed voice to me is the zona di passaggio, the area between the primo and secondo passaggios. Now I know that a lot of people use the term or phrase mixed voice to mean cricothyroid dominant singing voice. The idea being that you're mixing your head and chest, but I don't like that as a concept because I feel that it is disingenuous. It is not true. The truth of the matter is, if you want to call that mixed voice, then you need to call the range below your primo passaggio mixed range too, because you actually do have cricothyroid activity in that range. So if we're going to say that mixing cricothyroid and thyroarytenoid is mixed, then thyroarytenoid and cricothyroid is mixed too. So all of a sudden, our mix range for this average male tenor starts at G3 and probably ends around B4. And that, there are too many, like all the registration events are in there. And to try to deal with them, particularly in a vocalist who's having problems, becomes unwieldy. In my experience, it's better to be a bit more specific in the breakdown of the registration events so that we can address them one at a time and ultimately get smooth transitions across them and access the range effectively with consistent tone quality. Pierre, is there such a thing as too much engagement of the abs? Do some people actually need to relax the abs more? I feel I'm in that category, quite possibly. In the early days of practicing appoggio, it is easy to not have adequate lateral expansion of the rib cage, and so what you end up getting is a tremendous amount of engagement of the rectus abdominis muscles. It was physically painful for me. And I knew that couldn't be right. And you're right, there's got to be a different way. The system should be dynamic. So while the rib cage is held in its expanded format, it's not static. It's not pushed out and held there. It's kind of floating. Hence why when you talk to appoggio practitioners, you get a lot of phrases like floating or suspension, which is to say it's suspended, it's under tension, but not static. So I would suggest you back off of whatever you're feeling. Get in front of a mirror if you have sight. If you don't, get your hands up on your hard ribs or get one of those latex TheraBands that sports meds use and wrap it around the hard ribs, not the lower stuff. The lower stuff, you can fake it, believe it or not, with abdominal engagement. It'll flex those floating ribs out. So you've got to get up on the hard bone ribs that are connected to the sternum. Get up on those and either feel or observe that lateral expansion and begin with that. Keep it to a really, really easy area of your voice. I would suggest you use dynamic exercises, which is to say short vowel syllables. We, and try to maintain that suspension throughout the duration of the entirety of the exercise. So when you're singing, when you're paused, there should be little to no change in your body geography, the shape that you are in. I'm gonna try and get a bunch of people in here. I do so appreciate everyone joining me for these chats, and I know that there's a lot of questions, and I'm sorry I'm not gonna get to everybody today. So I'm gonna try and ramp it up here. Heater is not a bother at all. Turn it up if you're cold. Thank you very much, Patrick. I appreciate it. I'm feeling much better at this point. Felix, do you know something about subharmonics? I know about it from other coaches and singers, but wondered if you did. Not really. It's not something that I've explored too very much. To my understanding, it does involve a bit of vocal fry and quite possibly the ventricular vocal folds, which are these actual, they're not really folds, these sort of panels of tissue that are just beyond the vocal folds. So yeah, that's about the extent of it. My thing is the secondo passaggio. I love the secondo passaggio, and I love helping people figure out how to get through it and to make that connection so that they get, it's not necessarily this massive 4-some octave range, although people could certainly carry on and keep on doing that if they wanted to. It's a solid 2.5 octaves, easy, but it all sounds very consistent. That, to me, is very exciting artistically, and it's what I get excited about when it comes to working on singing. So, for the whistle tone thing and like the subharmonic thing, I've investigated it a little bit and I've looked into it a few times, and I continue to explore it from time to time when I get interested or I read something. But for the most part, my thing is the secondo passaggio. Don Cinta, how cool. I didn't study sax performance. UCSB didn't have a sax performance degree. I'm 37 now, but I'm a touring saxophonist with a reggae pop band, Hyrie, and releasing my own music now. Congratulations. I want to check it out. Fantastic. Awesome. Deppy, I'm pretty sure I have vocal damage, but I can't stop singing. Have a proper rest because I'm addicted to singing. Well, you know, you sound like, I mean, it's like my running and I have a really bad left foot problem right now. Alex, hello from Russia. Hello from California. I've got so many people I'm not going to get to. I'm so sorry, folks. Wow, there's a lot of comments. Okay, so Deppy, don't stop singing. But go to see an ENT. Go to a doctor and have them scope out your vocal folds and see if this really is a problem. If there really is, they will tell you in no uncertain terms to stop singing and what will happen to your voice if you don't. So, you know, I can dig it. I love singing too. It's what I do every single day in some degree or another. But you got to take care of your voice. It's a long haul. It's the long game. We're in it for the long game. So if you have to take a week off, that's not the end of the world. It's just a week. Maybe take that time to work on ear training. You don't have to sing for ear training. I mean, I think it's helpful, but you don't have to. Or do a bunch of constructive listening, things like that. Aaron, I started learning to sing not too long ago, and I'm a tenor. I'd like to ask how I can convert music sheets to my voice range. For example, Adele songs to my male voice. Sure, transposition is your friend. I did a video on it. Not sure the link right off the top of my head, but if you send an email to me through my website, I can send you, I did 2 transposition sheets. They're free. I'll just send them to you. If you don't know what I mean by transposition, I mean, you've got sheet music, so you must be able to read that. The transposition sheets will help you take a look at the chords in the songs and say like, okay, well, that's a G, and I want it to be a perfect fourth lower, so that's going to become a D. And the quality is consistent, so if it was a G minor, it's going to be D minor. It's just a perfect fourth lower. And the sheets, I think, people seem to like them, so they should make it a little bit easier to do that. Felix, I've got a friend who said you look like Joaquin Phoenix. I do agree, but do you get that often? Yes. Yeah, every once in a while that comes up. You know, we've all got that doppelganger walking around out there somewhere, I suppose. Maybe, I don't know. Hi, Jeff. My vocal breaks are E4 and A4. Should I do your mezzo exercises or alto exercises? I thought I was a mezzo, since my registration notes are a half step above from a true contralto. You know, interestingly enough, far be it from me to yeah, you should do the mezzos probably. The mezzo soprano primo passaggio is typically around F4. You're quoting E4. If your vowels are even remotely out of alignment or your appoggio practice isn't entirely dialed in, then you could easily slip that semitone. A4 is almost certainly going to be the middle voice registration event, and because the secondo passaggio in female vocals isn't there is no secondo passaggio for female vocals at A4. That is squarely in the middle between the contralto middle voice registration event and the mezzo-soprano middle voice registration event. So again, if there's any amount of vowel alignment questions or appoggio is not firmly in place, which by firmly I mean in well practiced, then you could easily slip that semitone to get the registration events to feel like they really should be that semitone lower. So I would stick to the mezzo exercises, but more than that, I would focus on appoggio breath management and vowel alignment at and below that A4. The primo passaggio for mezzo-sopranos is not nearly so difficult as it can frequently be for sopranos. So hopefully that's not too much of an impediment, but if you're finding your voice getting very airy as you pass the E4 point, then you're going to have to work with that to make sure that you can retain good vocal fold adduction. We don't want to have that airiness coming through. Folks, I love the questions so much, and there's so many cool things here. Thank you all for joining me. I'm so sorry I'm not going to be able to get to everyone's questions. I can see so much cool stuff. Hello from Russia. Thank you, Alex. I think I said that earlier. You're welcome. To those of you whose questions I did get to, you are very, very welcome. I can see there's some interplay in the chat. That's awesome. Hello in India. You're very welcome for the videos. I really, really love the questions. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you in Spain. And everyone else. I really, really appreciate it. I love doing these. Thank you in Brazil. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. Have a wonderful evening or have a wonderful morning. And thank you for joining me. Thank you if you've chosen to subscribe. I do hope that you'll choose to do so now. I know that's like my tagline. I'm trying not to. You'll notice I got the icon now in the videos. I'm gonna phase out the talking about all that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for joining me today. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. Hopefully we will see you again next month here in the live event, or perhaps in the comments, or perhaps somewhere else. Thank you so much. Take really good care. Bye.